Hit buttons and have everything hopefully working. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Discussing Tabletop. I am zoomed out because I can't figure out how to change the zoom in Discord for the new camera. I may eventually, but for now, you can definitely see my tabletop display over the corner. My massive tower. I hope everybody's having a great Saturday, though. Oh, my adventures to...
I just remembered a lot of camera comes with software, so you might be able to do it through the software and not set it to a default.
I tried to. Discord doesn't recognize it.
Got it. Okay.
OBS didn't recognize it either, but OBS I was able to alter it within OBS, which was really nice, you know?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sun just started coming through my blinds, so I need to close them.
Ah. Docket is in chat right now. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Some interesting topics. Nothing like super major, but some interesting topics today.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that.
I was saying we don't have any major topics today, but we have some interesting topics to chat about.
We'll actually get to a discussion topic.
I mean, you know, we kind of did last week, but it kind of evolved out of a discussion that we had in the middle of it when related to something else. I'm like, we already had a discussion topic. How's your week been, Worm?
Good. Well, not really, actually, but good enough.
Good enough is often what it is. Like,
things where I have a lot of pain are not fun, because I just literally can get nothing done.
I have had horrible back issues since Wednesday, so I understand this. Like, you know, I somehow hurt my back earlier on in the week, so my upper back was bad, and then I hurt my back and I heard my lower back was bad, and now I've moved my lower back pain to my right side from my left side because I lifted things yesterday, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I am a fool and people asked for help. Look, you know, we're all falling apart. We can just hope to live.
I do want to say it is funny how much, more you can deal with it when you know what caused it.
Yeah,
whereas
true.
mine's just random. This kind of thing where it's like, I know it caused this, so I'm gonna bear with it. It's like, this just happens sometimes. You just have to deal with it. It's mine.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully next week will be better for some pain and you'll be back to...
It was just like a really bad... I had a slightly bad day Thursday, a really bad day Friday. It's back to slightly bad, and I'll probably be fine tomorrow. It's usually at least not for too long.
Look, I'm just hoping that next week will be normal busy instead of busy with a lot of weird stuff kind of just messing up my schedule and plans completely.
Yeah.
So, it's what I would hope. Normal busy. We got some topics. We should talk about some of those. So I guess
Yes.
We can start with as it's self-described, a weird post-apocalyptic TRPG. So I guess there's been three
apocalypse. Well, there's an apocalypse, and then it's after it, and then after it recovers, and I think there's another one.
Yeah, so
because post-apocalyptic is generally a recovery of a after apocalypse, and then you got post-apocalypse, which I think would be another apocalypse.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be, and this is a funded Kickstarter. It's set in, I guess, 6042. It's called Wierd World. Look, you know, just some of the weird sci-fi ideas about it, where they're basically doing it's a weird sci-fi fantasy role-playing game, but probably like a little bit of humor in there. They describe it as a little bit of Idiocracy, a little bit of Borderlands, and a little bit of things like Futurama and Rick and Morty, you know, for that sci-fi edge. So it looks like they want to do a little bit of retro futurism, kind of like Fallout does too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting concept. They have some information based on it. They have they have a weird start. I'm sorry, I was trying to like read what that was because I'm sorry, the font just, if you know, I deal with this. I make thumbnails. Sometimes the fonts just don't work the way you want them to, and this is one of those ones where I'm like, this combination here makes it very hard to read the word weird start. So they have a quick start, basically.
Yeah, they kind of, it's almost like it's stretched a bit. It's like it's the same font as the one up higher, but the other one doesn't feel stretched, whereas this one feels a little stretched down.
Could be a combination of backgrounds and
Which makes
stuff,
it
too.
harder.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, no, so they've got like a couple, so they do have races. They have humans, mutants, aliens, automatons, and Weirdzards.
Yeah. There apparently had been other wars, apocalypses, and an alien invasion that all happened in the interim. So I'm assuming, like, you know, the aliens invaded, there was something happened, they kind of were, like, either defeated or it was, like, a mutual destruction. So now there's humans also living here on our, like, weird future world of 4,000 years in the future. Yeah. So it's interesting enough, you know, kind of a, it captures a lot of those kind of like feelings of different, as I said, genres, certainly. And, we do get a lot of apocalyptic RPGs, but I guess like your ones with a tinge of humor, a la like Borderlands and stuff like that. We don't get a lot of stuff like that, you know. Sure, like Fallout has this, you know, levels of humor, but morally that's kind of like, you know, just the setting. I like the idea of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious as to like what the rule system is. A quick start, I know, but
Quick start's probably
I'm not super interested, but I like the idea of it, but I don't know. Like, I'm just not a big fan of that like Rick and Morty, Futurama, Adventure Timey stuff.
If it's closer to something like the original Borderlands, I think I'd be happier, because the original Borderlands I thought like had the right amount of like quirky humor to a weird setting like that. That was very futuristic.
I really like Borderlands 2, to be honest. I think that was the peak Borderlands.
Well, I agree. Borderlands 2 was the peak, but I think the Borderlands 1 kind of established that. I have yet to play Borderlands 3, but I hear it just doesn't hold up the same as the other two. But I think it would be fun.
Yeah.
I got it at one point in time. I got it for the cheap with all its DLCs. I always talked with Blaze about playing it.
Yeah, I need to play I need to finish the one on the moon.
Oh, pre-sequel?
Never finished that one. Yeah, the pre-sequel, and then I also never beat the. And then I haven't even played 3. So.
Did I finish the pre-sequel? I can't remember. I often that was like at the era where like I stopped on my PS3, but I did play a crap ton of Borderlands 2 with Blaze. Me and him, we were doing like we were figuring out ways to duo raid bosses and stuff in that game. So anyway, that's side note there.
You can duo raid bosses. It's just not super. It's usually hard to solo them.
It requires cheesing things a lot of times.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did a little bit better in Borderlands 2, where you actually could do it with 2 people. But Borderlands 1, like, you had to do it with 4 people. The Kramagodden or...
There's that one area there's like one area you can kind of fall partially off the map and still target it, and it can't target you or something. And
yeah.
I remember just the run to try to get there.
Yep, I did it. I did it with my friend that way.
Mm-hmm.
Got the achievement on Xbox.
Yeah. Fun times. Anyway, I mean, like, again...
I'm trying to remember the name of that thing.
Yeah, this is not outside of my wheelhouse, but I do agree with you. Sometimes, like, some of that Rick and Morty / Futurama style humor can do too much. So I'm curious as to how much they present it in their entire thing. I mean, there is a...
Yeah, it's very weird on the surface,
mm-hmm.
but I mean, generally have to be a little bit more grounded for rules. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like my D&D to be a little bit more grounded. My RPGs to be a little bit more grounded.
I like the little setup they have for the playable species. You know, like, super greedy. They still think Earth is theirs for humans, or, like, mutants don't dominate species. Aliens, pissed off because they can't go back home. So I'm guessing, like, all their spaceships were destroyed and stuff, so the aliens are just was left, you know. Yeah, no, that's some, like, weird zerds for a thing like that. It looks fun. You know, I put the link there if you want to check it out. If you're interested in something a little different, this might be in your wheelhouse.
I think there's definitely a target audience for this.
Yeah. Like, for me, I'm close to that target audience. I'm not quite there. So that's why I'm like, it's interesting. Maybe. So, and, yeah. Why don't we move on, though, to just an interesting announcement that I wanted to kind of hit up on. And it was on Tabletop Gaming News that I saw this article for this one, so I wanted to talk about it. There wasn't a link, so we'll just give the Tabletop Gaming News link here. That apparently Kess Co., which I've heard of Kess, but I don't remember much what Kess does. I would have to look it up again. Kess Co. Tabletop. There it is. I think.
It seems to be more of a toy brand.
Yes, which is interesting.
Overall.
Because there seems to be plans for tabletop-related stuff from this. But it's coming.
They have dice and stuff, but the dice are more like novelty, like weird dice.
Well, again, it's like they say, like in the article here, they say upcoming products are expected to encompass both active play in outdoor settings and strategic gameplay in tabletop formats. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
You know, that's kind of why we're talking about it here. If it was just like a toy company, and this is Toei does One Piece and Digimon and some other like animes. One Piece and Digimon are two big anime franchises. You know, when we mentioned those two, we're talking about big things. Digimon's more of a multimedia kind of things because it also is video games and stuff. But One Piece, certainly that's the big anime. You know, you might talk about. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of product lines we see here. Are they going to be more general family friendly? Are they going to have some tabletop stuff that would be more for the tabletop crowd? Not to say that like your family friendly tabletop stuff can't be good, because sometimes there is some really good family friendly stuff, you know. But honestly, there are plenty of people that phone that in. There's a couple companies that really do some really good family friendly stuff that's good for all ages.
So what's weird is, okay, so they seem to actually target their current target, according to their About Us page, Kess, is they're kind of, it's like, oh, we're currently branching into like adult, like de-stressing toys for like simple games and things you can do, you know, just kind of interesting. That must be this kind of thing. Also, apparently, they're already partnered with Sony. So, yeah, party games, strategy games.
Like, I could link to their website where they got the One Piece stuff, but it's just to sign up for information. But I'll link to the Kesco website because they might have some stuff up there.
Okay, I see. So they do puzzles and. So I guess they're kind of like, so I guess it's kind of like the kind of stuff that like you do to their main current like thing is they do those things that like you do as a hobby to kind of like chill out, like puzzles and those kind of things. They have a lot of the whole section on puzzles.
But again,
with licensed anime pictures and stuff.
It does sound from the information released they will be doing again more things related to our sphere of stuff. But again, we don't know what form it's going to take yet, so I'm going to guess it's not going to be anything too complex. You know, it'll probably just be fun, easy, simple kind of things. But again, licensed stuff. It's interesting more than anything.
I think it's also things you can, like, adults can play with their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Stuff. Interesting company. Actually.
Yeah. Does anybody other than me here right now remember House of a Thousand Corpses? I technically saw that on a movie channel. It wasn't really something that I was really interested in, but I did see it just because it was there and there was nothing else on. It was fine. Anyway, it's a Rob Zombie, who's a musician, director, movie.
Heard of Rob Zombie?
Yes. Musician, director. House of a Thousand Corpses is one of the movies he made. It's about... I couldn't describe what it's about off the top of my head. Serial killers, I think it's something like that. Anyway, there's a board game that's officially licensed on it. It's just... So, it is Trick or Treat Studios, so I'm gonna tell you it's the proper studio name, at least for doing this. And it is a horror board game, tabletop game, and it's officially licensed. There's a lot of questions I have for this. It is 17 plus, 1 to 4 players, 60 minutes. Oh yeah, it's the Firefly families. They're like serial killer family. And you take the role of members of it. Okay, so you're basically the serial killers in this game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You take the role of Demented Clan on a quest to capture and, alas, dispatch your unfortunate victims. So, yeah.
And it's a co-op game, basically.
Yeah. It's got a very...
co-op games.
Yeah, it's got a very interesting style. I think it kind of fits along with the other kind of art styles around the movie and what Rob Zombie does. So, that's fine. It's a co-op game, and, a co-op game where you're specifically as the bad guys is unusual. So I'm not going to lie. That is, most of the co-op games, you usually tend to be the good guys or more neutral parties. So having one where you particularly are the actual bad guys doing terrible things is interesting. It's like Betrayal at House of the Kill, except you're all betrayers and working together to murder the Scooby-Doo gang. It's funded, also, like our last topic here. Still got 27 days to go.
Rob Zombie's first movie.
It was his first. I forgot that. Like, the unfortunate thing is, like, I don't really follow Rob Zombie. I know of him.
I just looked up his movies and saw that it was his first one.
Yeah. I don't know what else. I don't know if he does much else right now nowadays. Maybe.
I've heard of him from somewhere. And I'm trying to remember what he did recently that I've heard of.
I'm gonna look up Rob Zombie.
Like, that's the thing, I looked him up too, and I was like trying to be like, what did you do?
He was. That's right. He was the frontman of the heavy metal band White Zombie. Forgot about that.
But I don't listen to heavy metal, so it wasn't that.
I knew more about it because my brother liked heavy metal. I think he still does, but yeah.
Yeah, and like, I know there's something with like the Monsters, but like, did very recently, but I don't think that's where I heard of him either.
Filmography. Yeah. Devil's Rejects was the sequel to House of the Corpses. He did the one Halloween movie, a couple of the Halloween movies. Zombie Horror Picture Show, 3 from Hell, 31, The Monsters. I mean, he's done a bunch of stuff here and there. He still makes, he still directs and writes movies and stuff like that, so and it looks like he still does some albums and stuff too, but anyway.
Yeah, he does both. He's no longer part of the metal band, though. His stuff is so low.
Yeah. Again, I thought, I haven't seen this for years. I saw it once, and it's not particularly my type of movie, but I thought it was fine for, like, a slasher flick. I'm not huge on slasher flicks. It was just sort of like right time and place for me ending up watching it. And I think I came in, like, a little after the beginning, so it wasn't too far in, as I recall. I thought it was fine. I am not necessarily the target audience for the movie, but again, fine. If you loved the movie or you like the style, I like the style of game though. The cooperative kind of games like this. So I find it an interesting one to be in the direction of the villains / monsters going after people. That's an interesting direction for a game. So that does scream interesting to me. And for $59, you get a copy of the game. So yeah, and they got some other goals and stuff like that. And they also have you can either with it or specifically separate, you can get a set of extra plastic miniatures, which I guess are, better pieces if you want to have plastic miniatures rather than standees. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what it was in that I've seen, but I can figure it out.
Yeah!
Apparently cameoed in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yeah, it looked like he had a voice. Yeah, there. So, interesting enough.
That's, again, not where I was thinking of it, because, I hadn't seen that movie, so I'm trying to figure out where it's
Yeah. So Kobold Press is joining everybody else that's doing it to have their own online convention. Which, I mean...
It's really just a play. I don't mind these, because it's literally just a Twitch event, usually, where you,
they have some,
a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and they have
a bunch of announcements for your company.
And usually at the side of it, they have some organized play events with their products, which is again. I think these are fine. I think they aren't real. There's something other than your an actual convention, because they really aren't a convention. You can kind of maybe sign up for a Discord group to play a game related to this, or watch on Twitch announcements. It's not really a convention. I don't know if there's a name for this kind of thing, but I think it's fine to call it an online convention now. It's
okay, just as someone who's this really did become a thing. Before conventions were always in person, but when COVID hit, there were a lot of conventions that had to go online because they couldn't actually do conventions. And since then, we've had online only conventions, which, I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I kind of prefer them. I have actually seen a few of them, so I kind of like them. It's something to put on and kind of, that's an interesting thing.
I think it's the thing that, I think it's the thing for me is I have experienced conventions and I have experienced these two, and I'm these are two different things entirely. And I think that's the thing that I always think about it. They're
really more of a live stream event than they are a convention.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're kind of like a live stream event with maybe some organized play or kind of stuff like that connected to it, where it does end up being a little bit more personal of a thing in some ways, while being for what's going on and seeing stuff, it's a little less personal. But again, they're interesting. They're an evolution of stuff. I feel like they aren't bad to necessarily have, but there are something very different and interesting, and I'm curious as to how these evolve in the future, because we are kind of getting back to the convention stuff too, and I guess the conventions have their advantages of certainly people can sell stuff at a convention. Yeah, I could sell something related to my online convention, but I'm probably already doing that.
So,
I think...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's more of a news thing. So, yeah, it's a little weird because, the conventional definition of convention is, people gathering at a conference, about something. So it's all it's usually, something you meet for. So, yeah, these online ones, I think they're just a weird offshoot of the name that came about, but I agree, they're something completely different.
And again,
I don't them. For some things, I don't care about EA, but Kobold, I'm actually I might watch those.
Again,
I watch TennoCon every year, So
I kind of agree with you. I think they're fine. I think I don't find them offensive or anything like that. I don't think they're thing. I just think it's sort of we don't have a name for whatever they are. It's fine to call them conventions until someone comes up with a term for these online announcement / organized play events. that are totally somehow, they're not really connected, but they're happening at the same time. They're doing a bunch of little things that make the convention, but they aren't really. Yeah. Anyway, it's fine. I'm glad Kobold Press is doing it. Kobold Press has been doing some good things lately. It's fine. We'll get some cool announcements there.
I think they're honestly an upcoming large company. Like, I think they could end up being as big as Pathfinder eventually.
Yeah.
They have a lot going for them.
So here's an interesting thing that I have here, which I didn't have a good link to it because they don't have a link on Catalyst's website for it yet. So I'll give the news link because I have one more from Tabletop Gaming News here. But basically, Catalyst Game Labs. The people that are part of, I think the Catalyst Game Labs are a subdivision of no, it's the same thing. It's the people that do Shadowrun and BattleTech are now also going to be doing a deck building adventure called Runefire for Paizo, which they're going to crowdfund later on this year. So it's interesting to see that Catalyst is a pretty big gaming company to making a deal like this. So it's interesting to see that they are in a way like outsourcing some more stuff to it. And it just goes to show how much, Paizo is trying to spread Pathfinder stuff a lot more and kind of getting it out there a lot more. It's interesting, I think. It's a narrative deck building. You embark on a journey across the Inner Sea region exploring locales in Cheliax, Numeria, Taldor, with diverse section of ancestry. It's a kind of adventuring. So sounds like a very adventure thing, but again, like, that's just the press junket. I would be very interested to see this Runefire game in and of itself to see if it's like, is it something like one of the D&D board games, or is it something more akin to it was like Legends of Avistian or something. It was a game that Joe had. That was a board game. That was a very adventure board game, but it was like one of the D&D ones are like you're exploring a dungeon. This one was like you're exploring a region and going on adventures. So it was like you're like on an overworld map going on adventures. I'm interested to see kind of where it falls and all that kind of stuff. And how well they do. Catalyst isn't a bad name. I'll link to Catalyst's website too. Again,
I do find it interesting that they haven't announced it yet, because they do have on their website stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, I assume it's like on Twitter or with some kind of press release that would be like on one of the somewhere that they've talked about this. And again, it's sort of like I probably should get more press releases, but I'm so bad at remembering stuff from my emails when I check them. I'm bad, I'm sorry. I remembered one from this week. We'll be talking about at the end of the week. I remembered one. Not terrible completely. Only mostly. But yes. Again, I like this type of game. I like the D&D game. I like that Legends of whatever game that I can't remember the name of right now, which I probably could look up, but I'm not going to bother at the moment. That Joe had.
What you could be talking about.
God. Legends of Andor! I just put Legends of A and then board game, and it came up with it. It was Legends of Andor he had. Boom! Yeah, I liked Legends of Andor. It was good too. And again, different scaling. Both are fun games. I enjoy both of them. I'm looking forward to seeing how this will go. If they capture like some of the thing where they're using interesting bits of Pathfinder and Paizo's lore that they've built, I think that's great because I really do like the lore a lot. I talk about it enough to know you a bit, so
it's interesting. I think it's a bit much. I get it. I actually can see the appeal, but I just feel like it's a little bit much. butch.
Sometimes it is. I will not disagree with you on that one. There are some aspects of it that can be a little butch because they have basically continued built upon it in lots of ways, and making it complex.
I just feel like everything's happening everywhere all the time.
Well, that's the kind of thing is they keep making these adventure paths, and then they're like, well, we're building them into the lore then. And I'm like,
Well, it's just this kind of weird thing where it's like they have the adventure paths, but then they also have like these weird things. So yeah.
I think that's why we're seeing the adventure paths be like 3 adventures long and being less epic nowadays.
Yeah, they're encompassing lower levels. Although there have been a few which are only higher levels,
But again, I feel like also they're still making them like there's a end of the world story going on, and more like, hey, there's this cool fighting tournament you could be part of, or like something like that. The stories are still like have a scope, but it's more comparable to something like Curse of the Crimson Throne. Curse of the Crimson Throne is probably a better adventure path because rather than being like it's this massive problem that's in Corvosa's reach, it's no, there's just some shit going down in Corvosa. If you're not from Corvosa, you probably don't really give a rat's butt against what's going on.
or at least the eastern side of
Varisia, yeah.
Varisia, thank you.
I mean, like,
My brain wanted to say Valros, which is from a D&D podcast I've been listening to.
Even then, like, if the worst came to worse, it would be worse for Corvosa more than like a lot of the other regions like Magnamar and Sandpoint and stuff like that, and it's this interesting thing that like it's very contained in comparison to like honestly Carrion Crown, Skulls and Shackles, Rise of the Rune Lords, a lot of these books are like technically have larger scopes.
Yeah, I feel like reading through the synopsis and stuff of some of the 2E adventure paths, because I'm playing one of those, is they don't feel as crazy as some of the first ones I've seen. So the 1 ones, they're a little bit more grounded and a little bit more centered on a specific area with very specific stuff happening.
Turns out writing really large apocalyptic stories over and over again makes for a really confusing world sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's why I find their world war very weird, because it's just all like, oh, there's like this apocalypse, and it's like now they're not doing that as much. There's still really crazy things. It's more like preventing an apocalypse from starting, because there's this weird artifact that was left over from the previous apocalypse that bad people are trying to get a hold of, and you're trying to stop them.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
it's kind of a lot less. It's a lot less,
there's a lot less of it. It doesn't mean that there's not like dangers to the world and stuff like that. But again, like it becomes us a little levels down in simplicity, and they have been tuning it to whatever levels they are. If you're playing like a high level up around level 15, yeah, you're gonna have a pretty big adventure. This ancient evil artifact we've got to stop. Okay, Anyway, so in order to commemorate the 25th anniversary, God, it makes me feel old, of Cowboy Bebop, Japanime Games is giving us a Cowboy Bebop RPG. Let me link this in chat too. I'm curious if they're using the Besom system, the 2D6 system, or not.
They make the Besom games?
Yes, the newest edition of Besom is Japanime Games. They're working with I think whoever has the rights, they're like doing a publishing with it. So they're doing a lot of things like that, and they also did some 5E anime games, so some stuff that's mixing Besom stuff with anime and stuff like that.
It says in the description, an original game system based on D6 dice to overcome difficulties. So it's a new one based around D6s.
Yeah.
What is Besom? I don't remember how Besom works. It's been a while.
It's 2D6 system.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's a single D6 or I don't know what kind of, like, you know, is it going to be like a more something like akin to like a Shadowrun with a D6 check or something, you know, number of D6s. Again, it's a D6 based system. We're not sure the exact details of it. I honestly speaking, I think the Cowboy Bebop world's an interesting one for doing these kind of games in. It's very easy. You're a bounty hunter in space, bounty hunting. I mean, it's you don't get much easier than that for a setting. That makes it very easy to make characters and just have adventures. I'm curious as to how their starship mechanics and like stuff like that works. I'm curious about how they take in their combat and stuff.
On the hunt for good ship combat. I've yet to find good ship combat.
You know, even if it's okay ship combat, I would like to see how well they're doing on it. You know, I have questions. But it is going to have starship combat.
I actually find a lot of starship combat to be okay, with the exception that if you don't have a party specifically built, like the problem is most things require players to have specific skills to use it correctly. So if you don't have the right party, it becomes harder. You know, it's this weird thing where players have to fill roles that aren't fit to them. So it's kind of weird. I've never seen an easily malleable system that can be used for players who are players. The one thing I know about players is they hate to fit molds.
Okay, so it was Dice Kami Publishing that was working together with Japanime to bring us the original Besom 40. I don't know how much they're working together now because they've put out a lot of products and stuff related to that, but I'm just correcting myself here if anybody asks. So this is something that they seem to be doing on their own completely. So is this like, you know, they've learned lessons from working together with them? You know, there's a lot of questions here. And it's not like they haven't done some role-playing stuff before. But not a lot of role-playing books. So, again, this is post they're, you know, working together with Daisuke on Besom. So certainly we could... Maybe you know, I'm not saying that they can't do the job. You know, they definitely can. We're just going to have to see how well it ends up, what kind of system it ends up being. I'm curious.
This might be their second one. I mean, I don't see.
Under their site, they have a couple other RPG books, but not a lot.
Only one other system with a few expansions to this.
Yeah.
Well, you can pre-order those if you want.
Yeah. So. Yep. Yeah, they might have. Like, honestly speaking, I haven't paid much attention to how much they're connected with them anymore on that end. But originally, I was introduced through the entire thing. So.
Quick start costs money.
Yep. I'm sure we'll see like either just a full release or. They might have a Kickstarter. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be coming up. So here's a very interesting board game that's coming out. That's a collector's edition of something. Do you want to have a game where you can play basically the inspiration for Civilization in board game form with up to 18 people? That would take maybe 12 or more hours to play.
Sounds like an interesting party game.
It's apparently a limited collector run of Mega Civilization, they call it, with 3,000 pieces weighing 11 kilograms, with a box costing $200. Yup. Mega Civilization.
Players. What's the minimum?
I don't know. And this is apparently sold out years ago, and it's coming back now with a revised edition of this version of the game. And this is apparently based on the original Civilization board game, which inspired Sid Meier's Civilization. So If someone was like, you know, this original board game, we can make it stupidly epic. It's just so interesting.
Fun 2-day activity because there's no way I'm playing 12 hours straight.
Fuck, man, I don't know. It's a crazy thing. I guess we'll kind of have to see the release. I'm assuming it's going to be another limited release. They're only going to get so many, and probably it's a crazy product that'll probably sell out.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's gonna be released late 2020.
Yeah. If you're interested in somehow playing a classic board game and a version of it that's an 18-player version that will be forever to finish.
Yeah, we'll probably hear about it again when it comes closer, and at that point we might know a little bit more, like, can it be scaled down? Is there a short version?
These are questions that there may or may not be answers for. And if there are, well, good luck. I did want to bring up, briefly, and this again is slightly outside of our wheelhouse, but still side enough into it. With the, was it Pokemon Direct earlier this week, that I incidentally ended up seeing, because I didn't even know it was going to exist, but when I got up in the morning, whatever day it was, I think it was on Thursday. It might have been on Thursday on the 29th, or Wednesday or Thursday, one of those days. I got up, and as I was, like, you know, doing stuff in the morning, I just happened to turn someone on that was going to go watch it, you know, after they were, you know, when it came on. And so I got to see it and be like, well, that was a nothing burger. Just kind of like the, there was another, like, announcement thing that was kind of a nothing burger. But this was one of them, definitely. There was some stuff there, but nothing, like, major. I think, like, it was like the Nintendo, I think, Direct that was recently. That was kind of like, there was, like, it was all indie games and stuff like that, which was fine, but it was, like, nothing really anybody didn't expect. In this case, there's like, there's a Pokemon game coming out next year that people might care about. But also, there's this thing, which is, there's a new, like, the trading card game Pocket. The trading card game Pocket, which is a mobile app that seems to deal with collecting Pokemon cards and maybe playing them. Is this like, just looking at it, I'm like, are they basically creating Magic the Gathering Arena, but on an app on your car, in your phone?
It sounds like, based on this, there's also going to be some sort of caching. Yeah, so, like, as far as I can tell, it sounds like, although it's, yeah.
So, yeah.
Like, I like how there's, like, a small error that's been in, cards for, like, literally since the game's conception. And there's like errors on the back of the Magic the Gathering card. But because it's the same back they've had for Magic as
well? Oh, yeah. And since they have to keep the same back, it's still there. Those ancient, like, little, like, there's a couple of little errors. I'd have to remember all of them, the natural ones in the art style.
Yeah.
But since this art here has been there, well, it's reversed right now. But since the beginning of the game, you know, they can't correct it at all. It's sort of like one of the things, like, I know about is, like, there's a Deck Masters. There's a little line over Deck Masters here. That was an error! Like, it's really hard to see. But on the Deck Masters, like, a little blue line. And every Magic card has to have it. Because it wasn't supposed to be there. There's stuff like that. There's a couple of little...
Yeah, so, like, on this, it's in the English version of the printing for the Pokemon cards. For whatever reason, the ball opens with the white part on the button on the bottom rather than on the top.
Yeah.
I just find that's very amusing that they fixed it for this. It's a digital thing. When you update one, you update them all, so they can fix those kind of mistakes.
Yeah, it's a very easy mistake to correct that, like, you really can't do on physical cards the same way, you know?
I feel like because, like, in theory, you could have different cards which have different, I know which card is coming up because it has the different back. So it's kind of, like, hard, but, like, the real easy way around this is to require sleeves for professional play.
Yeah.
Which a lot do anyway.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see how this entire thing shapes up, what kind of game it actually ends up being. Because again, we've seen some stuff on it, but if it's something that's akin to like an arena for the Pokemon trading card game, more power to them. You know, I've always found like the trading card game, Pokemon trading card game, it's fine. I never got really that deep into it. I tried to play and collect for a little bit, and then I stopped. I still have that ancient collection, which probably has a mixed value at this point in time. Honestly speaking, it's probably reaching that era where I don't know if it's going to get any more valuable or drop, but
And this makes me wish that in Pokemon number 5, the region that's kind of based off of America. I think it would have been funny if they had a variant Pokeball that opened the wrong way.
Nova.
The canonized, Unova. I think, wouldn't that have been hilarious if they like had it so, oh yeah, no, we throw them with like the white on top. That would have been an amazing nod. That would have been hilarious.
It would have been a good joke, and not that they haven't done in jokes like that. The Pokemon trading card game, or Pokemon universe in general for like media.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, that's why. Because it's just a region thing.
Oh yeah, but if you like Kalos, there's a new Legends game with Kalos. So that was the announcement. That was the only actual announcement related to that entire thing. I mean, like, they announced like at a Pokemon Go event, and I'm like, wow. You do that anyway. You did not need this event to announce me a Pokemon Go event. That did not look any different than any other Pokemon Go event. I'll probably catch some Pokemon during that. It's not changing anything. So anyway, but yeah, we'll see how this goes for the trading card people. Good. Hopefully, it's something cool for them, and they will enjoy it. I only usually hope that they get good stuff like that.
Yeah, I like these kind of... They're great introductions to people who haven't, like, played a game. Like, for me, like, Magic Arena would be, like, right after the start if I wanted to play Magic. Because it's the way I'm actually going to play cards without knowing the game.
Arena's not a bad place to start. For simple, standard gameplay, it's probably your place to go to. I definitely could see that. There are some... I feel like since standard gameplay is also rarer now, it might be even better just to be like, hey, learn from someone else if you want to play like actual formats people play a little bit more.
No, even that wouldn't make a difference. What is? They need to make an updated version of that then.
Again, you can't really play Commander on there. You can play Standard. And Standard is fine. It's just the fact that Standard is mistreated by Wizards, which anybody that's unaware of Standard, just to kind of give it it's like the... Is it like 5 or... I think if they increased it, it's like... it's at least the 6 last sets, I think, that were released is Standard. So, like, main sets. So it's not any Universes Beyond, it's not any of the, like... Modern Masters or stuff like that, or like Commander Masters. It's just like the 4 standard sets per year, and I think they're doing 2 years worth for Commander now, so it might be like 8 sets actually. I'd have to. They increased the rotation range for it recently, like last year. So like it's just those cards from those sets there, and that's fine format. It's not bad. It makes you play with new cards. It's just you actually have to support the standard format, and they're very bad at doing that very often. You know, with like in-game events and stuff, or allowing the organization of like events at game stores and stuff like that. You know, you'd think like your game would be healthy if you don't do anything to make it healthy. I don't know. That seems like a strange idea.
Yeah. But it makes them money. It doesn't need to be healthy if it's making them money.
So, I was trying to look for a different link here just in case. No, I just have the ones that I at least have a couple links here for some stuff here. But there it is, that one. Okay. So, first thing here, and I'm going to use Momo's link here. I did find a couple other links to this article, but we'll use the Games Radar one, because that's the one that Momo gave us, because Momo, even though can't join us, they're good enough to give us some links of some stuff to talk about. And Modifius is working on a Discworld RPG. So, I'm going to say here...
Modifius is... I just said that. It's not like you said that. I'm just like, Modifius. It's like Modifius, but Momo gave it to us.
Yes. Well, I was going to say, like, really this is the time that I would have had to be, like, summon Joe, because I think he loves Discworld. You know, he loves Terry Pratchett stuff. And Discworld's the big one there. So, this isn't the first time we've had a tabletop RPG for Discworld, but the last time someone had made one was in '98. So it has been nearly 30 years since we've had an RPG based on it. And I'm sorry, if we're looking to a version of a game from '98, it's going to be old? I'm being nice about this here. You'd feel its age, certainly, on its mechanics and stuff. So we don't know if Modifius is going to update that older system to something more modern, utilize one of their own systems because they do their 2D20 system, or come up with something else.
I just noticed you wrote Discworld, not Discworld.
Well, you know, I do that. I'm going to remember to correct that. Discworld, did I? I did. I missed the C. There we go. I've corrected it in a place I'm going to... So when this video ends up to YouTube, you'll be at least corrected, YouTube. So you're welcome.
My dyslexia made me very confused for a second, which is the only reason I noticed.
So yeah, Modifius has the rights. They're working on it. It will hit Kickstarter later on this year, so we'll have a good chance at looking at it. But it is a property that does have a lot of popularity, so I can see it going far. It's one of those things that I'm like, it's probably going to be funded. How much? I don't know, but it's probably going to be funded at least. And Modifius does a good job on these kind of things, so I'm glad to see it. I don't think there's anything else to say about it, unless you can think of something to say about Discworld.
No, I don't actually know anything about Discworld. I haven't read many Terry Pratchett books. I feel like I've maybe read part of one.
0 for me, so you beat me. Ugh. Alright. So, last main topic we have today is good old Star Trek RPG, Star Trek Adventures. It's getting a second edition. It has been out for quite a while now. Like I looked at when someone said how long it's been out, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's an edition. It's like 8 years or something. That's certainly the time period for an edition, you know.
I mean, yeah, no, I mean, it's been 10 for D&D, and they're finally getting an update. So.
We are going to see more stuff from the Discovery, especially Discovery's later seasons. Where they like travel to the distant future for different storylines. Some stuff based on the Strange New World series, and of course the Star Trek Prodigy, which are ongoing Star Trek properties. Prodigy, I think, is animated. And they already did something for Lower Decks, so it's another animated series that they were doing. I don't think I actually watched that then. I thought about watching it just to check it out, but I think it's more younger audience aimed. So we're expected to see stuff on the new one coming out at Gen Con. So we'll have an idea about how they're updating the system. It sounds like because they've had a lot of time to develop and improve their 2D20 system, we are going to see some streamlining to the 2D20 system as it is in this one. So that'll be really good too. Like, if you compare the 2D20 system in something like the Fallout RPG with the one in Star Trek, certainly they are still both 2D20 systems, but there's been a lot of work to streamline, improve different ways that it functions and stuff like that, even though they're very similar on the surface. So it seems like that's a part of the entire plan here, is to streamline some stuff too. Yep. And we'll just see more eras of Star Trek along the entire way too. So cool.
Yeah, I mean, Star Trek's actually getting a lot of stuff right now, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
You know, like, you got Card, Lower Decks,
Discovery, which is almost done.
Discovery, that's the, yeah.
The Brave New Worlds, which I think is going to have a second season, maybe, and then, like, you know, the Prodigy series and stuff, too. They've been doing a lot of Star Trek stuff, and it's been a mixed bag, but they're finding a voice now. Like, Strange New Worlds, I've heard very good things about it, you know?
Everything I've heard about, like, everyone is, like, it starts bad but gets better.
I mean, that's...
I feel like most of them are that way right now.
That has been a little bit of tradition on Star Trek, but I think it's sort of like most Star Trek series, their weakest seasons are usually the beginning, but the thing is, most of them start out pretty strong and just get stronger, where I feel like Discovery didn't have that strength, where it built into it. While Brave New Worlds, maybe this first season's not going to be the best, it still starts out at that stronger point, because they've kind of, like, developed their voice for this new era of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think, like...
Star Trek right now? Paramount?
Paramount, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I just think the people that are the forerunners of it are beginning to figure out the proper voice for, you know, telling stories that feel like they fit with the pre-established world, but kind of also making their own thing, which is, I think, the best way of doing it. Because you can tell your own stories for a universe, because it's a vast universe, but having at least a little core of that, what feels like Star Trek. You know, that's why I think Deep Space Nine worked. Because there was that little core of Star Trek, but they were an entirely different kind of place, you know. And so I think, like,
yeah.
we're getting that now, you know. And we can tell different stories within that. So, again, I don't know a lot about Prodigy. I've liked Lower Decks. I've got to catch up on the last season of that one, too. There's a lot of stuff that I just have put on the back burner about watching, but I'm happy about this. Again, we'll see more at Gen Con this year. We might know more, definitely by then. So, yeah. But maybe by next year's May the 4th be with Star Trek, I'll update to 2nd edition.
Yeah.
I'd be down for that if it looks good, and I'm happy about it. So. And the blog page I've linked to for everyone, where they've got their kind of announcement page. So, there you go. All right. So, that finishes up our main news topics for the week. So, I mean, that took a little while. It wasn't too bad, though, for news topics. But, what was it that I wanted to discuss? I had a topic for deeper discussion, but I'm forgetting it now because I didn't write it down. Because that's, of course, me. Forgetting things that I wanted to talk about. Oh, yeah. I thought something that was interesting, that... Let me just make sure... I didn't think I handled this topic. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I didn't. I wanted to talk about... And something that you did this week in Crimson Queen. And
oh, yeah.
I like using that a lot of times as examples of times trying to get to topics. And the thing is, it makes me have good topics in mind. And I thought that something we could talk about is the investigation and detectiving kind of concept when it comes to role-playing games. Because the searching, investigation part of things happens in a lot of spaces. Certainly it can be as simple as something as, I'm in a room, I look around, you know.
Yeah.
But it can be as something as complex as kind of what was going on in Crimson Queen. Or even more complex, where it's like actually kind of more like a detective kind of thing in a role-playing game. And yeah, there are a few like noir-style detective RPGs out there where they're specifically built around this thing. But your average RPG, from like a World of Darkness game to a Shadowrun game to, you know, D&D, can have adventures that deal with looking into things, researching stuff, staking out places, you know, breaking into things to try to find information without people knowing. Like, a lot of that stuff that's like your detective-style stuff, but it shows up in these different games actually kind of often, you know.
And there are some that are very based around that. Like, I know Call of Cthulhu has a lot more of it than, like, D&D.
Yes. I think Call of Cthulhu is one of those ones I would compare with a lot of the noir style. But Call of Cthulhu does have, like, a noir style in it. Granted, it's Lovecraftian horror. But, like, there's that time period for Call of Cthulhu that oftentimes kind of does that, you know, early 1900s kind of noir style. Interspersed with the, you know, alien and weirdness of Cthulhu. So, D&D or Pathfinder or even like the other more modern or futuristic ones I mentioned, they don't normally build into their systems investigations per se, though.
That's because in a lot of cases, investigations are too very. So, I mean, to be fair, World of Darkness has an investigation system. Sorry, I should clarify. Chronicles of Darkness has an investigation system that they actually built into the game.
Yeah, I don't know if World does. I know, like, because Chronicles... Yeah, Chronicles has a lot of... It's that thing that both World and Chronicles, even though they are very related, do things very differently, you know, and they are different systems, so keep that in mind, you know.
I do not remember it for the life of me. I could look it up, but...
I can't remember if there's anything particularly complex.
It's, you know, I think it's... But in most cases, things like... And I've been reading through the Pathfinder rulebook, and they mention investigations as well. Even though they don't have, like, systems for it, they mention it. And I agree with a lot of the kind of concept. Your players should discover... So, my thoughts on this are your players should always be able to discover everything they need. Even if... but they should have to come to their own conclusions. Basically... You shouldn't have to roll a perception check to find a bloody knife on the bookshelf.
Yeah.
Unless that itself isn't necessary to solve the crime. Or whatever, you know, mystery crime. I'm just assuming, like, solving a crime is a very straightforward investigation.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, I think you actually said it best when it's solving a mystery. You know, it's some kind of mystery, whether it's a crime or something. Solving a mystery of some kind.
There are also kind of two routes you can go, in my opinion. The direct route where you're, like I said, your characters are actively looking around and trying to piece things together. You could also gamify. I'm someone who does like the certain gamified systems of things, where the players like decide to do something and then you can like make them roll and then that determines something else. On success or failure depends on like what they get and how close they come to the right conclusion, and you can just tell the players what they get and what they know, and so that's a way to do it. I think this partially depends on the GM style, to be honest, more for investigations than what you should and shouldn't do, because I think if you can put together a mystery with a lot of pieces, the players will probably eventually come to the right conclusion. especially if they have infinite time. I think that's definitely something you need to worry about is time. Trying to force your players into solving something quickly, in my opinion, would be very problematic.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. You don't want to push it too much and, force things in a direction that doesn't work. But again, like, I think it's kind of one of those interesting things is, like, it can be hard for people to see a full picture, too, when you're not in front of a full picture. And what I mean by that is, like, when I'm in person and I'm sitting here at my desk, if I was going to look into something, I kind of, like, know where to look. I can recognize where to look and stuff like that. If I'm describing the desk to someone, they're probably going to have a worse time trying to, like, guess and piece together things related to that then. They're looking on it from the outside. And unfortunately, I feel like that's kind of sometimes how it goes for investigation stuffs, is you're technically kind of looking on the outside. So questions about it get asked, I think, a little bit sometimes. And don't always get answered properly because it's hard to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, players need to be asking the right questions, which is they never will. Or sorry, I should say you shouldn't rely on the players to ask the right questions because they never will.
Yeah. It requires this combination of both some leading and not leading. Because you don't want to lead them too much, because if you do that, they're not having an investigation. But you want to give them just enough that they know where to look and almost like how to look, maybe, and that can be the challenge of running an investigation of some kind, I think. That the correct direction of it all. Sorry. That back problem I talked about earlier just is working on me a little bit, so I moved. I think the example could be like, let's take Wednesday for an example, which was an investigation. You were looking into people there. There was some comical issues around the entire thing, like there was 2 teams going. Oh wait, like I messed up somehow, which I couldn't even realize how I messed up. Expressing it to you guys, it was 1 location, so you thought it was 2, which was hilarious to me.
Yeah, there's definitely something there. So here's the thing. Everyone else thought it was 2 locations. I thought it was 2 parts of the same location. So even I was a little bit wrong, but everyone else was more wrong than me.
Yeah.
Not to, like, sound great, but I'm saying, like, I thought there was, like, I thought it was the same building, because you mentioned there was just 1 warehouse. I remember that much. But you mentioned, like, 2 sections in some way that made my brain go, okay, so there's, like, the section where people are taken care of, and the section where people, like, work. Or, like, and I thought, that's why I thought we were going to 2 parts of the same building.
And technically speaking,
other people just thought it was 2 completely different buildings, so
But the thing is, that thought pattern was still technically true to a degree. Because there was the downstairs and then the upstairs where, like, the business would have been, like, kind of originally done.
Yeah, but I thought it would have been like, here's the receptionist, here's the medical area.
Yeah, it would have been like, there's the main building and, like, a smaller section of the building that's next to it that's kind of offices. Yes,
yeah.
I
So, there was definitely some kind of, like, misunderstanding there. I'm not sure how you came to it either, because or how you got us to think that either, but
I somehow did.
Players, all the players were on the same page, not with the GM.
And so that's like the first of the entire things related to it, and then of course you have
it worked out, though.
Yeah, and of course then, like, the way you went about the investigation portion of it was you talked to a man, you asked him some questions, he rolled horrible on sense motive, called it a day. There wasn't a lot to it because of, like, the dice handled things in a very weird way, I think, at least for this investigation, where you didn't have to, like, go on interrogations. Theoretically, you could have, like, broken into places and stuff like that, but, like, and which you eventually tried to do, but, like, you broke in And the guy basically is probably like a workaholic and was up late at night working on stuff, and he's just like, "What the fuck are you doing in my room?"
And that's something I kind of was like, we shouldn't go up there because that's his office, probably his office. I was trying to say that, oh, he's probably up there, but I realized I didn't make that clear. So
again,
the rest of the party,
there was a lot going on at that time, like your microphone breaking didn't help. There was a lot of loss.
That was before the microphone. The part where my microphone became a problem was when I was trying to talk to. I felt I was trying to ask if we wanted to go around to the back for a distraction after the entrance failed. But that's apparently when the communication broke down from me.
Okay, but there was
part. I just realized I just mistakenly assumed that everyone else was on the same page as me when I said that's probably his office.
Again, there was like a lot of stuff going on and things like that. But if we boil down to the essence of what was going on, it was an investigation into people. And yes, you found some information out, it led you in a direction, and is it, you know kind of what's... well, you actually don't know anything. You just know, like, some things you've managed to learn. There isn't a lot of, like, evidence on one thing or another, but it's put you on a direction at very least, I would say.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, we're gonna go in guns blazing. It'll be fine. I'm not like worried about it in the long run. We're definitely gonna try and capture the main guy and be as non-lethal to everyone. We're gonna try, like, my goal is like, if we can, basically keep the patients and the doctors safe when we capture the main guy, we can do something from it.
Yeah.
But back to investigations, I do want to bring up something that is kind of important for a GM to know. And that is that there are 3 types of inference. So ways to come to a conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
There's deduction, induction, and abduction. Not to be confused with abduction, which I think is spelled exactly the same, but a different word.
Pronounced differently, but spelled practically the same way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, when most people think of crimes, they go, oh, it's deduction. Realistically, what they're doing is called abduction. It's trying to figure out you make an explanation that fits the pieces you have.
Mm-hmm.
That's abduction. I actually think you should not do that with players unless you walk them through how to do good abduction. Then there's induction, because this is what most people do if they're not good at abduction, is based on general beliefs, you come to a conclusion. Basically, you kind of start at the conclusion and make the pieces fit, which is what most players usually try and do.
Yeah.
Which is fine if you know how to do it right, but generally players just don't. Then deduction, which is the main one, which is eliminating options. This is what you should really focus on. You should make clear, if I had to give an advice as to how to do a good mystery in a game, it would be to present options, make it clear what the options are. This guy was murdered by the butler, or the maid, or the neighbor. And then they can eliminate those options. That's deduction. Deduction is knowing what it's like, is knowing the possibilities and eliminating the ones that aren't true.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, it's you have setting up for that can be difficult. Like, I think
it can be.
I don't think this setup for what I was running fit with any of those very easily, because I was relying on, like, to a degree, what was there in the adventure. I'm running an edited version of a pre-made adventure. There's certain information I can kind of rely on more than others.
I mean, that to go with what you had, with what we were working with for your game, for the Crimson Queen.
Yeah.
We did actually kind of have options. You may not have felt like you presented them very well, but I thought we had very clear options. It was as weird as it may sound, it was either the cult has infiltrated them, or they are part of the cult.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, we had those options, and when we realized he was being shady, we realized he's in. So we had options. So that's the thing, is it doesn't have to be like, it's gotta be people. It's just, here are the options. Here's what it could be. Now the players can eliminate those options so they come to the right conclusion.
And again, like, I do think there is, though, still some issues with the way things ended up, because, like, it'll be easy enough to learn. It is more complex than he's a member of the cult kind of thing. Because that would have been a lot more obvious, and there would have been different actions, actually, with what you were asking. It's more that, you know, he certainly knows something, or maybe is aware of someone doing something, kind of. Probably would have been more like what he opened up to you guys about.
I'm saying he's involved in some way.
Okay,
I'm not saying he's necessarily the culprit. That's more what I'm saying. It's like either they are infiltrated or involved.
See, and that's the thing is, like, I get that from the way you're saying it now, but when people were talking about it at the time, I was like, yeah, I mean, that's a fine thing to jump to the conclusion on. I felt like it was the other, you know, like a lot more for the group jumping to that conclusion to a degree, which I mean is, and technically speaking, it really doesn't make a big difference on that end, which one you're jumping to, but like, you know, it's sometimes hard to tell which directions will like cut things off or not sometimes, with the way that like you do things, because certainly it's a maintaining it as a complex situation was interestingly enough, but it was pretty complex. And I think that's the thing about an investigation when it comes to a role-playing game, especially in a system where it's not necessarily built into it. It's going to be complex and going to be kind of challenging to run to a degree, because it has, like, a flow to it, I guess you can say. And you don't know how that flow is going to go overall until you start doing it. Sometimes, because again, like, you don't know how your players are going to make choices. You can kind of guesstimate, but they might decide, I'm going to do this, and I'm like, well, that's not helpful because that's not related to what you need to do.
Yeah, I understood their logic, but I just didn't think it was like, I was just like, you should sneak in the back. Like, I was fine with doing both the disguise and the other route at the same time, but I just didn't want to have to like. I just didn't want to have to like have what's his face Tavel to waste, you know, like 5,000 on like a hat, you know, or 2,000 on a hat.
Oh, I understand more now, and I think that's something that like it seems like that was just a mix-up in communications between everybody there too, because
that's why I recommended the Dimension Door.
And the Dimension Door was fine, but the disguise was really so much better. I'm going to tell you that. It was 100% better. Even the invisibility was a better idea. Like, you start out with better ideas and kept going to, like, worse ideas, which is the kind of weird thing. Like, the invisibility actually would have been really easy to do, and, like, you don't actually... 3 minutes of invisibility could have got you somewhere pretty good, honestly speaking.
Yeah.
The Hat of Disguise would have been really effective. And again, it's sort of like... That's another thing is, like, you know, me being able to express to you when I'm like, this is a good direction to be going, is very hard to do when you don't have an NPC there. And that's why, like, you know, Momo was like, hey, if you need to talk to us, just fucking use the Weasel. It can speak to me now. And I'm like, yes, Weasel. I could Deus Ex Weasel if I really needed to, like, give at least some kind of hint or something, because I feel like you're on the right... Because that's the thing, sometimes when you're on the right track, you want to give a hint, but you can't very easily. Because and it might have sped things up on the entire thing too, because like I don't know if you needed to speed things up,
because when we had the disguise option, you might have been like, you probably could have just chimed in and been like, oh yeah, they're wearing masks, and just, you know, like, you could have said something.
Yeah, well, I think I might have been able to say that. Yeah, everybody's wearing masks. The only person that wasn't was the doctor that you talked to.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too, is I wasn't thinking of disguise because I knew I couldn't be disguised. I think my brain went there, but I'm all like, I'm a dragon. There's no way. Even Condas stands out a little bit with how big he is. But the other three could have been easily disguised.
And again, like, yeah, the idea of the hat of disguise, which I don't think you have one, but, you know, getting
Tavel
one.
was thinking of getting one because he had some leftover money.
And, you know, that is a really good item for that. Or just, like, disguise self or something like that. Again, there's a lot of interesting questions to the entire thing, but...
I think it's fine. I think Momo overreacted a little bit when he went invisible, too, which is another thing. That's a whole different problem.
Well, that was... I know what that was. That was, you know... Everybody has Carrying Crown PTSD, and it was more Carrying Crown PTSD.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as like how to go about an investigation is hard when interacting with it changes the scenario, and we all knew that, which is what we were trying to figure out the best way to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like whatever you do will change the way things work.
Yeah.
And that's hard because then you really only have one shot at a plan. And this is less investigation and more plans. Like we didn't even really get to investigating because we couldn't get evidence.
You were working on an investigation and kind of went about a direction that was difficult to figure out a lot of stuff about. There was a lot of questions about it and a lot of directions and stuff like that. And
also, I think why Momo was okay with it is because he thought he would be able to charm him. Because if you remember, he instantly tried to charm him.
Yeah.
And then Condas straight went for punchy punch instead of diplomacy.
Again, I think it was just a portion of the evening that was kind of like tired out and stuff like that.
Yeah, the problem was everyone had a different idea about how to go about it, and we didn't really get on the same page before we enacted it.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
And the main reason we jumped the gun is because it was a show, and we all knew we had to get something done.
Yeah, no, and that comes down to, you know, using, like as you said, I could have probably even like chimed in on the discussion, like as a advice of like, hey, like, you know, like when you talk about this guy's like, yeah, you didn't see any of them that didn't have masks on. Seems like they're always wearing those on when they're on duty. You know, that kind of thing I could have easily stated out there. That was a mistake on my end, you know. And again, you have to be careful when it comes to investigation type things.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it's also hard because it's like you also don't want to lead the players on too much to be like, because sometimes you can basically be like, yes, that could work, and the players go, cool, it's going to work, and then they get stuck on it. It's like, no, I think you need to iron it out more. That's not where I was going. So that's also kind of a hard thing to do with those kind of things. Yeah, It's more planning and planning, which is hard. I think investigation is a little different, though. If we're talking about investigation, I think it's just setting up but back to investigation, I would say, rather than planning, which I guess kind of fits, is, that's kind of like how to help players come up with plans. That's something I'm actually not sure how to do. I should read up on that for if we ever want to do that strat in the future.
Yeah. Coming up with a good plan for something does require, like, you know, some challenge in the entire thing, too. You know, and I think plans are often related to the investigation deduction kind of thing because it becomes a planning thing. But, yeah, like, just a discussion on actually, like, planning as a PC. That could be a topic. Planning as a PC.
Or helping your players plan as a GM. I think that's also another thing where it's like without giving too much away, you know, because like I said, though, that one I actually not sure what to do. I usually just let players do shit. Personally.
Which is kind of what I was doing too, but I've also like sometimes added stuff in.
I think the reason you feel bad is because people were upset at the conclusion of it or at the resolution of it all.
Again, I understand why there was a lot more upsetness, and, like, I'm a lot better with it, like, now, but definitely I could feel there was some upsetness from it. And I it was the thing that I was like, look, it's not Carrion Crown. Please don't let it, like, the scars come back to the surface.
Yeah.
We're not back there. We're back here with me. We're not back there. There's no adamantine doors. There's no like necromancers nuking everybody. Yeah. It's not an easy thing sometimes. But.
Yeah, so I think that's why he was so upset. But
yeah, I know.
I think it's fine. I think we tried something and we failed. Now we have to deal with the consequences.
Which you are, like, again, like, I'm going to tell you, like, it's hilarious that the consequences aren't as bad as you could think because you stole the goddamn guy's button when you knocked him out and had him paralyzed for a second, which, honestly speaking, he probably thinks, like, did I, like,
He lost it, yeah.
No. The thing is, like, he's a guy that's also good with, like, poisons and stuff. He has knowledge of that. That's another one of his skills. Poisons and diseases and stuff like that are his expertise. He could be like, did I accidentally poison myself earlier?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because there's no... Because no one saw the freaking rodent.
No one saw the goddamn rodent. Yeah. It was really hilarious. The goddamn rodent managed to like do that, and it was. I enjoyed that quite much.
That was fun. Again, I just think it was the plan. We kind of were really trying to. We were all very clueless. We were all throwing out ideas. Whatever. I think it's funny.
I do agree in the end. I think it was fine. I think you didn't end up in a bad spot. So it's just a matter of the completion point. So yeah. Why don't we talk about our week in tabletop? I can just finish up on that. Was basically the investigation and getting into things and teleporting, and that was we kind of talked about Crimson Queen.
We started investigating. We tried to continue investigating. Then shit hit the fan. Is basically the synopsis of that game.
Well, we did have Joe's game because that's this week. Did you do anything tabletop related Monday or Tuesday?
No. No, I haven't really done anything.
I had Wednesday.
Crimson Queen.
Yeah, I had Wednesday where...
Thursday?
I mean Thursday, yeah, God.
I had Wednesday too.
Yeah, you had Wednesday too. Again. Long week. Long week, long day. My brain's already fried. It's usually by the end of the show, I'm like, yes, I can say the correct things. Totally. What was I saying though? So yes, 'twas the Thursday. It was more investigating stuff related to. We're trying to find some allies in order to get rid of this these evil twins who had taken over, who apparently killed their father and took over a town, and are being like really like oppressive and stuff like that, and we're like going to free them and stuff, that kind of story. So we like freed like this member of a resistance force from prison. After and I may have been responsible for the deaths of like 5 people.
What did you do?
Well, I found this weak point in the wall, and I used because we're like 11th level 5e characters. I used Shape Stone to open up a hole, and then I was like, well, summon Celestial, get in there, Celestial. And so it just sort of began killing the guards. I may serve, like, if you talk alignment, something like I may be a chaotic good character serving like a chaotic neutral deity kind of thing. I serve the goddess of like secrets and like shadows and stuff like that.
Okay, so the Celestial summoned was related to chaotic neutral and was all like, guards, law, no.
I guess I'll just get rid of them. So it was a lot of, look, I hung out on the roof in a tiny hut, which I ritual cast, so eventually everybody came up to meet with me after they rescued the person, and the screams died down.
Okay.
It was the thing I did. It was funny. Also kind of awful. But yeah, so that was that. Look, and that game is kind of weird and enjoyable, and I really, I'm interested to know what's going on, but I'm also God damn it, my character doesn't know what the fuck's going on. The character I'm playing is one that would really not know, so she's just
That's the Dryad, right?
The Dryad. Yeah, the Dryad who lived for for 500 years, and then someone was like, "You should see the world," and then discovered religion when they left out into the world. And now I've been in the church, and I'm I really should learn more about this before I travel. Anyway, but that was that. I don't think anything. I didn't do anything else tabletop. Did you do anything?
No, I didn't really do much this week. I've been prepping for a game I'm planning to run, a one-shot to learn Pathfinder 2e a little bit better and GM it.
Cool.
But my paying complimentary from putting more work into that.
Yeah. I also had some tabletop talks. I talked about a little bit more of Dark Sun, Pathfinder topics, and then it was Werewolf the Apocalypse stuff for one of the Extinct Fair earlier today, which was an interesting one to talk about. Which was fun to talk about because that was me with my my old webcam dying, so I have to have this new one that's zoomed out in Discord.
Yeah.
God.
There's probably a way to do that. I might be able to...
I know there's probably really is a way, but it's probably I have to learn how to do it or something. So there's steps to do it.
You can do an OBS virtual camera Discord, which then is captured by OBS.
Yeah, something in between there or something. Yeah, or just not have. I could also start OBS first before the Discord and capture the video in OBS as just a video of me, and then just have me as a blank screen and capture anybody else in Discord. Which I could do too. It's a couple extra steps, but it's not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I'd very much rather you do the virtual camera thing, which I know you can do and stream. So
yeah. I can figure that out eventually.
Which is basically exactly what you said, but we can see you as well.
You see me. Where's the fun in that? Yes. Anyway. Alright, I guess that leaves us it for this week. Hope you enjoyed. We should be back next week on schedule for that. Worm, do you have anything to shout out? I guess your streams and stuff.
Yeah, I'm DiamondWyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm or @DiamondWyrm on Twitter. I stream Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. 7:30 p.m. PST on weekdays and 10:30 a.m. PST on weekends.
Cool.
I got that out pretty flawlessly. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Myself here. If you're looking for just general streams, I stream Monday through Saturday. All my tabletop stuff goes up on YouTube, so if you're checking this on YouTube, it's going to end up there usually a couple days later. The schedule generally is Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays for gaming stuff. Current big gaming is Parasite Eve 2 Randomizer. It's been fun. Check that out if you want to see that. I'll be planning more stuff in the future once that's done. As I said, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday mornings are my tabletop stuff in general. I might change the Saturday morning one. I've been thinking about actually maybe just doing a World of Darkness thing on Friday before the Friday stuff. If I can get Friday's schedule down to a normal and just do it a little later. Because honestly, that might be easier. But we'll see. And then Saturday evenings for Discuss Tabletop. And of course, as we mentioned, Crimson Queen, it's on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. EST if you want to check that out live. Or, of course, later on YouTube afterwards. I have social media, which is Discord, Twitter. That's down below. and all my or wherever you're at, it's going to be linked below. And yeah, everybody, have a great rest of your Saturday. Check out Worm tomorrow, and I'll be back on Monday with the plans of, as I said, finishing that. Well, getting close to finishing that Parasite Eve 2 randomizer. I've been enjoying playing through the game again. Too much to I'm not speeding through as much as I maybe should. It's that catch-22 of the experience is really good, but the threat of things versus getting some bounty points and trying to find items. It's a weird thing when it comes to a randomizer. You make choices and sometimes it takes a little longer. All right, later on, folks. I'm gonna get going. Bye.